What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today we're going to be looking at another Kershaw Walmart 2-pack knife. This is the Kershaw 1300WM. This is an entry-level China-made knife, and it is a knife that I like. So we're going to talk about things that I like and some things that I don't like on this one. I'm not quite as impressed as with this one as I am with some of the other budget Kershaws. The second knife in this 2-pack is definitely one that I really like. So we're going to be doing that one tomorrow if I can get a hold of it. But anyways, let's talk about this one. This is an all-steel frame lock, and I'm okay with that. Previously, my favorite entry-level knife before this one was also a Kershaw 2-pack, and it was an all-steel frame lock, but it had an overlay of imitation G10, and it was peel ply textured. And the additional texturing around the handle on that one was one that kind of created more of a feeling of security, and I don't get that as much with this plate here, and we'll talk about that. I think first, let's do a size comparison with the Manix 2, so we can get an idea of size here. The Manix 2 is 8 inches overall, and is what I consider to be a very good EDC size. So we're looking at close to the same size here, with more cutting edge on the 1300 here, but of course there's no forward choil like the Manix. Go ahead and close that up real quick. So let's talk about this handle here. Some interesting, and I see this a lot on some budget folders. We actually have definitely a steel frame lock on this side. What I assume is a steel liner, and then this plate here, which is interesting. It's like, why didn't they just do another steel plate? Well, probably to reduce the weight, because this is likely aluminum. I don't know that for sure. I mean, it's a pretty heavy knife, but I can't think of any other reason that they would do that. It's just added parts. Ergonomically, it's great. You've got some jimping here. There's a thumb ramp. There's no jimping on the thumb ramp. I wish that there was, but in any case, it does. There's definitely a feeling of security. In hand, this thing has excellent ergonomics. There's no issue there. You have a pretty classic drop point blade with an upper swedge. For some reason, they added a fuller here. I don't know what the purpose of that is. You've technically got 3 means of deployment here. You've got the flipper. This is an assisted knife, by the way. You've got the thumb studs, which are, well, I'm going to chalk that up to me just not knowing the position to get the thumb stud to deploy properly with a torsion bar. It doesn't really want to work too well, but then again, my thumbs are pretty sore from opening that rat over the weekend, so it does work. Not too bad there. And then I guess because there's a fuller here, you can open it like that. If you had 2 hands, I've got one on the camera. I don't know. I have to assume that it's mostly for aesthetics. It's not one of those fullers that's really going to trap gunk. So it's an aesthetic that doesn't really add any function, but it doesn't necessarily hinder you. So I guess I'm okay with that. The blade does look nice though, and the whole thing has kind of this dark gunmetal acid wash on it. Well, so that's kind of neat. The pivot's very plain Jane. It reminds me of the pivot on the Chavez 228 Mid-Tech. It's very similar in appearance. It's just kind of a rounded off button head pivot that's got a Torx head in there. And you've got 2 body screws on this side, 2 body screws on this side, and you have actually another screw on the other side, on the non-show side or the locking side of the knife. And then you've got an open body construction with standoff, so pillar construction. Steel frame lock, and Terry's been using this, the gentleman who's lending me this knife, and in my lighting, the frame lock is locking up at about 60%, so not bad. There's a little bit of blade play, but I think I could just tighten down the pivot and there wouldn't be. There's definitely no vertical blade play. It's just horizontal, so that can easily be fixed. After however long he's used it, it is off-centered to the left side from camera here, or locking side, which is just fine. I imagine you could probably get that centered if you want to. That's all besides the point. The blade doesn't rub, so that's good. Here's what I don't like about this knife. There's no texturing on the scales here, and this seems unnecessary. This sort of odd scalloping here. I mean, it doesn't necessarily make anything worse. It's just, if they weren't going to do any texturing, I wish they'd have just done it flat. It's odd to me aesthetically. I can't specifically knock it and say that it's going to cause a problem versus it just being, perfectly just straight here and non-textured. I mean, I suppose some people might say that it doesn't look as nice, but my question is why not add some texturing? Why not just do some simple texturing, some 2/3 texturing or the entire thing, some type of texturing. The ergonomics are good enough that it's probably going to stay, in hand. But it just leaves me kind of wanting something else. So this is an okay knife, it certainly seems to have held up well, but it hasn't been used super hard. And again, these are entry-level materials. So if you buy this knife on the secondary market, for $15-20, which is likely what you'll have to pay for it, I think there are some better options, specifically some of the other Kershaw Walmart 2-pack knives that are still available and that will become available Christmas every single season. So definitely keep your eyes out for those, because those seem to be, they really knock it out of the park with those things. And oftentimes, if you pay $20 for the 2-pack and you get one knife that you don't like and one that you do, in my opinion, you still got your money's worth, because you've got two knives and you could probably, give it as a gift or sell it to a buddy for $10 and he'd be happy, and you'd have a $10 knife that was really, really great. The other thing that I'm going to knock this on is the same thing that I knock all of the other Kershaw Walmart knives on, is that there's only one position for the pocket clip. This is right hand tip down only. So it's going to sit in your pocket like this. And I don't like that. Some people do. The reason that I was okay with that other knife having that is because the design of the pocket clip, this is a deep carry pocket clip with kind of a dented duck bill. It works. It's a little rickety because I think it's been bent out. Normally they're up against the frame tight. The reason I was okay with the other one is because it landed halfway on the frame and halfway on the frame lock. So it doubled as it wasn't an over travel stop for the frame lock, but it doubled as at least some partial protection, from over springing it or unspringing it if you were to, forcefully disengage it. And I was okay with that because it served a functional purpose in that position. This one doesn't. It just engages the frame, and it's huge. I don't know, it looks wonky to me. So I guess I'm complaining about aesthetics here, which isn't really fair. Because functionally this is a pretty good knife, and I got to be honest, that pocket clip still doesn't really create any hot spots. In fact, this thing is nicely rounded off all the way around. It's got jimping in places where you'd expect. Actually, let me see here. Yeah, that does provide some nice traction for your pinky. And then you've got some up here, which provides some medium traction at best. But the shape of the handle provides a good, secure feeling. So I guess aesthetics bother me a little bit. Wish there was some texturing right here. Wish that this could be mounted in a different position. If that were the case, this would be great. But again, I think this is aluminum and then some inexpensive steel, stuff like that. This isn't going to be a super hard use folding knife, but again, if you need a cheap beater knife to throw in your truck, this, or better yet, wait for the next Christmas Walmart 2-pack from Kershaw, because again, those all seem to be great. I can't say that there's a whole lot else other than, I don't think this is the best. See, where this scallop is, it leads me to believe that it needs to be pushed this way, but it doesn't really want to go that way. It wants to be pushed almost straight up. So this primary choil here, which is made more from ergonomics, doesn't really do the thumb stud any justice. But again, if it was cut just a little bit lower there, even still, it just doesn't really want to deploy. Part of that is, if you go back and watch some of my other videos, I really like the cheapy assisted knives where the spring starts to have tension at about right here. Those are awesome. This one doesn't have any tension on the spring until it's about right here. So when you deploy with the flipper, it's just fine. But unfortunately, the combination of where this thumb stud is and where this, cutout is so that you can engage it, and where the spring actually ends, or how much power that thing has behind it, it leads to a weak deployment. You can see there that was close, but if I'm going to deploy this naturally with the thumb stud, it only wants to go to there. So, and here's why I think that's important. eventually the torsion bar will break in these. And the nice thing about the cheap Kershaws is that there is a detent ball on the inside of the frame lock there, and there's a detent hole in the blade. So if that torsion bar goes, you still have a functional knife that can hold the blade into the closed position. But likely the detent will be super weak and make the flipper tab almost non-functional unless you whip the knife out, which I don't like, because that causes excess wear on the stop pin, and then your frame lock eventually will move over, more over as this kind of wears down. So you're left with the thumb stud for a primary means of deployment, or at least a reliable means of deployment, without doing excess or unnecessary damage to the knife. So when the handle's not set up correctly to allow that to occur naturally, it kind of just becomes a nuisance and a bother. So that sounds like that's really nitpicky. But that's my honest thought on that, and why I'm not really happy with the way that they did this. But again, you're paying $10 for a knife, theoretically, if you bought the 2-pack. So I really can't complain. I mean, it's really not fair to expect that much from a $10 knife. In fact, Kershaw does a great job with all of these. So if this is your knife and you love it, that's totally fine. I think you made a great choice versus a lot of the other absolute garbage that's out there. So that's just my thoughts on this. We're going to talk about the other one tomorrow and why I really, really like that one. But if you're in the market for a really inexpensive knife and this appeals to you aesthetically, this is still a really great choice. So that is pretty much all I have to say about that one. You know what's weird? There's no lanyard hole on it. I think this is the first Kershaw 2-pack knife that I've seen without a lanyard hole. So if you're a fan of lanyards, you might be out of luck there. I wouldn't tie it to the standoff because it'll likely come in contact with the blade every single time you close it. But I suppose you could attach it to the top of the clip there. I don't know. Some people do that. I don't really like. I'm not a huge fan of lanyards on knives, but some people are. In any case, that is pretty much it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you were entertained by it. If you did, please leave a like. And if you'd like to check out my other content, I do have lots of videos about either expensive or inexpensive knives that I do or don't like. So please check those out. And if you enjoy all of that content, then subscribe to my channel and turn that notifications button on, because I've definitely got more coming. So thanks again for watching and have a great day.